How would you like to make a Freelancer's clone in Unity using just free game assets? That's what we're going to do in this series of video tutorials. This is my first video tutorial series, so there might be better ways to program, but I think you'll be pretty impressed with what we're going to be able to do. I spent about 3-4 months on this project, figuring out how to the basic trigonometric functions that I needed to know for like the UI and interface between the UI and the lasers, and it was a great fun project for me to work on. I just wanted to share it with all of you, and yeah, it's this has got to be one of the better tutorials on YouTube. Like what you get to make with this is, in terms of like the complexity and the the product, basically what you're gonna get out of this is a really cool space combat game, which are notoriously hard to make, and I'm going to help you get pretty far progression of the actual game. You should probably be able to create the whole game yourself, given what I'm giving you, and yeah, all you'll need to do is just populate the levels and maybe some artificial intelligence, that type of thing. It's not small stuff, but I'm giving you big pieces of this puzzle. So if you want to make a space combat game in Unity, especially a third-person one, check this tutorial out. It's going to be great. So the game we're going to be making, my screen capture might be a little slow because I have a 5-year-old computer and like no money. So this is it's going to be a little choppy, but rest assured, on my computer it runs smoothly. So it's going to be smooth and nice. We're going to be making a game much like this. This is a game called Starfly that I've been working on, and we're going to, it's basically a Freelancer clone. I just love the game Freelancer so much that I'm going to make a similar game. I'm going to introduce you to a whole lot of concepts, a lot of involving trigonometry, and some cool workarounds to make your map size appear much larger than it is actually is. A lot of clever techniques. This is the result of about 4 months of me working, and I want to share it with all of you on YouTube. You're going to be able to do this with free game assets. This has got to be one of the coolest game tutorials on YouTube. So check this out. It's going to be a blast. I hope you enjoy it. Hi YouTube, welcome to the Freelancers.clone game tutorial. This is going to be the first in a series of tutorials where we make a Freelancer clone. We're going to start off this tutorial by opening up Unity. Okay, so I'm going to create a new project called Starfly Take 1. That's the name I'm giving this. You are free to name yours whatever you'd like. It shouldn't trip you up too much. And let's go ahead and make this game. Alright, I've got a pretty slow old computer. Alright, so let's start by going to the asset store and purchasing free assets, because this tutorial we are using just free assets. So to do that, we're going to type in spaceship right here, and we're going to want the free only. And we scroll down, scroll down, scroll down, scroll up. Let's see here. There it is. Free SF Fighter by CG Pitbull. And that is a good model. So we're going to go ahead and you're going to have a download button. I have an import button. I'm going to go ahead and import. And I import it into my project. And okay, if you're new to Unity, there's some things you got to know about scenes and stuff. Well, this has a project file. You open it. There's a scene with the SF Fighter. So you want to go from the asset store to scene view and click SF Fighter, and there's a scene with the SF Fighter in it. Looks good. So what we're going to do is we're going to drag the free SF Fighter from the hierarchy into the project pane. And so we have that, and then we do File, New Scene, Save, and just drag this into the hierarchy view, and it's right in front of us. So the first thing that we're going to do in this tutorial, we're going to make lasers fire. So we're going to get laser sounds, and we're going to have the ship move forward and back. So those are the two basic things that we're going to be doing in this tutorial. And for us to judge movement, we need something to gauge it by. So I'm going to make a new object, create 3D object. I'm going to make a cube, and that's a little small. So you might be in the Services tab. Notice where my mouse cursor is. Services. You want to go to Inspector. See, because the cube is a little small, so we're going to make it size 10 all around. And that should be good. And we'll just do bare bones, like 2 cubes for frame of reference. That's basically like all we need. One more than what we need to gauge a reference frame. And there we have our frame of reference. And so what I'm going to do is we have this SF Fighter. I'm going to go ahead and look where my cursor is right now. I'm going to go to main camera. I'm going to drag this over the free SF Fighter. And it's not in a good position. Like, noticing the camera preview here is not a very good position. So we're going to move this up and back and up. And you might want to tilt the camera. This might upset us a little bit later on when we have to do UI, but we could probably, there's some trigonometric things we can do to fix that, so it might be a little bit cumbersome, but I think it leads to a better overall view if it's tilted a little bit. I'm going to go ahead and move this out of the way. So main camera, that looks pretty good. I think I want to move it up and back a little bit further, more like Freelancer. And well, this still looks like it's in the way. So yeah, where do we start here? I think what we want to do is do the motion first. I think that's the most commonsensical thing to get out of the way. So that's what we're going to do. We are going to create a new script. So if you watch this, I click on the SF Fighter game object, and I go to add component on the bottom right hand corner, and I type in new script. It's more like the mid section of the right hand side. And I click new script, and I'll name it, let's name this ship movement. And I'm not so good with the naming conventions. I don't know if it should be lower camel case or whatever, but that's what I'm going to do. I'm pretty self-taught as far as programming. So this is ship movement, and we're going to go in and edit script. So yeah, I don't know if you saw what I did there, but there's this little gear right where you attach the script, and you just say edit script right there. So if you need to see that again, I'll do it in a more apparent way. I'll move this out of the way. So So yeah, you go here, see where my cursor is, and you go to edit script right down there, and then it opens up this this pane where we can get into programming. So just wanted to make that clear. And what we're going to do is I'm going to make a float called center mouse wheel thrust. And actually you need a center mouse wheel. I should probably say that before. You need a center mouse wheel for this game because it's a Freelancer clone, and I'm pretty sure that Freelancer used the center mouse wheel for the thrust. You can correct me if I'm wrong in the comments, but I'm pretty sure it did use center mouse wheel. It's been like a decade since I last played it though. Float, and we're gonna call this center mouse wheel thrust. You can call it whatever you want, but you might get confused if you change the names. I would recommend you keep the names. And so let's see here. Center mouse wheel thrust. Well, what we would do is center mouse wheel thrust is equal to input dot get axis. It's an axis, it's like a wheel like on your mouse, and then type in quotes center mouse, and then this is like all one word, mouse scroll, but the W is capitalized, so make sure it's capitalized. Mouse scroll wheel. So you have center mouse wheel thrust is equal to input.get axis, open parentheses, open quote, mouse, and then space, scroll wheel, all one word, end quote, end parentheses. And yeah, that's to get that. But what we're going to do is we're going to multiply all this by 80. So because the get axis, it's not actually a very big number. It's like 1/10 of 1/10. So you want to multiply it by a lot. So when we do this next line of code, it actually shows some thrust when you're going. So we don't have a rigid body attached to the ship yet, but we're going to just do get component rigid body that velocity is equal to transform that forward times center mouse wheel thrust. And that should be it. Oh, except I made this one error. If it's just this, it's going to go and stop, go and stop, go and stop whenever you get a mouse wheel. So you want to actually add it to itself. So on the equal side, you do plus equals transform forward center mouse wheel thrust. And that looks pretty good. I mean, this is pretty simple for what we're doing, but I think this should work. So as long as I attach a rigid body to my ship game object, I got to remember to do that. So I'm doing that right now. I go to add component when I have my ship selected, and I type in rigid body. And so rigid body, let's take out gravity because we don't need gravity. It'll just fall through the floor or whatever. You don't want that. And we can go ahead and press play. And so now I'm going to scroll my mouse wheel and see, oh, it works perfectly. So that's good. We've got forward motion, backward motion. It's pretty Freelancer-like, at least in this one direction. Could use some more effects and stuff, but that's pretty good. So we're going to get moving right along. We're going to go ahead and make the lasers. So we're going to do firing and forward and backward motion in this tutorial. And for the lasers, we need a particle system for the actual laser to show the laser, and we need a sound effect for the laser. So what I'm going to do is go to free sound. You're going to want to have Audacity. Okay, that's very important. You need Audacity for this tutorial. It's a free sound editing software. You're free to use your own software, but when you get sounds, you're going to need to cut them up like laser sounds. And I'm going to freesound.com right now. I have much better sounds that I'll probably be able to find. Laser Blaster. Let's just try that. And let's see what we can get sound wise. I'm going to put on my earphones so I can hear what the sound effect is like. Okay. I'm just going to go ahead and download this. It doesn't require too much editing, and I don't want to get too bogged down in the sound editing. But I will go ahead and download this. And show in folder, open it up. And I have this sound effect. Hopefully it's not showing. Yeah, I gotta click OK. Alright, and alright, we're gonna use this sound effect. It's not the best. It's literally the first thing I found when I looked up sound effects. But we're just gonna use this for the tutorial. So you're free to use much better sound effects if you find any. And so I cut this up nice and I'm ready to export it. Exporting it to desktop, and I'm gonna call this Laser Blaster. And okay, and I'm going to go ahead in assets. I'm going to import new asset, and on the desktop I have Laser Blaster. That is the name of the sound that I want. And good, so we have the sound there when we need it. I could probably be better in organizing my files and putting them in separate folders, but for now we're just going to keep this sound here. Now we're going to make the particle system, and the particle system, you right click on the hierarchy and go to particle system, and this you'll really need to like look to see where I'm at. I'm going to try to go slow so you can see where my cursor is. But as you can see, the particle system here is not really oriented the way we want. Instead of 90 degrees, we're going to want 180 degrees. That's the right direction for the laser to be. And we have here certain variables to start. Looping, pre-warm. I think we can click pre-warm. And start lifetime. We're going to want to go decrease that to 0.4 seconds, let's say. And then start speed, we're going to make that, let's say, 30. Okay, and then start size, we want to change that to, let's say, 4. Yeah, that looks about right. And then we go to emissions, and we want to turn this way up. We want to turn this to like 40 or higher. Probably higher than that. Probably 80. Yeah, that looks pretty good. And then shape, what we want to do is restrict this to 0 and the radius to let's say 0.2. And that's starting to look more like a laser. I don't know if you can see that there, but that is starting to look pretty good. So let's see here. My lips are dry. It's because I'm not having enough nicotine in my system. Lips always dry out when I don't have nicotine. It's kind of weird. But let's get into this thing. So let's see here. Color over lifetime. That is an important one. And I'll see if I can remember, because last take I did this didn't quite do this right. Click. Okay, good. So it's showing up here. I'm not doing it off screen. And you want to click this bottom right hand corner for the color. I hope I didn't mess that up. Um, this is kind of confusing me. So yes, I want color. Yes. And I'm going to turn that to red because red is a nice laser color. And I'm going to change the alpha down like this. And so it has kind of like this nice effect of looking brighter at the front and kind of trailing off in color in the back. And I kind of like that because it's like more of the energy is concentrated up at the front there. And that's what I like to see. I'm having the default particle just to simplify things. We could import like the Unity particle system and have like particle glow. It has a nicer effect. I guess it will look a little better. But for now, we're just going to keep things simple and just have this default particle. And so once we have this, we're going to name it laser beam. Laser beam. And we can go ahead and just drag this down here. So same thing we did with the SF fighter. We dragged the SF fighter down to the project view, and we have this prefab. So with the laser beam, I dragged the laser beam down and now have a laser beam prefab. And that's going to be useful for when we do our next thing. And our next thing is we make the laser guns. And pardon me, but this is a bit of a cop-out. This isn't a real laser gun. We're going to make a laser gun which is just an empty child object. It's not like a turret that spins around. That would be cool. It probably wouldn't be too hard to program. But for now, we're just going to make an empty game object. That's where these are going to fire from. And let's see here. That looks like it's inside the ship. So you gotta play around with, like, actually you don't have to play around. If you're smart, what you would do is you see the numbers on my inspector, and if you dragged it into the hierarchy view, your numbers should all be the same as mine when you drag the ship into view. Into the scene. If you dragged it into the hierarchy, it should default at the same place. And actually, when you create the child objects, make sure when you create the game objects, the empty game objects, make sure they're childs to the SF fighter. And so you can just use these numbers on the transform here. You can copy what I have listed down here if you can read them. So I have 3.98, 0.78, 4.7. That looks pretty good. Like, it looks like it might be a little too far to the edge there. But yeah, that looks like a good place for the laser. So what I'm going to do is copy and paste. And so that's my right laser, and I'm going to see the number here, 3.75. So I will have negative 3.75. It should be nice and symmetrical. Yeah, just look at what your right laser and left laser is, and just make sure it's symmetrical. So they should all be the same. The Y and Z should be the same, but the X should be like negative of that X to be symmetrical. So this is my right laser. I'm doing it from the perspective of the cockpit, obviously. And this is my left laser. And so we have the laser guns. They're not real laser guns, they're empty child objects, but that's where the lasers are going to fire from. And so we're going to go ahead and make a new script. New script. Laser fire. And yeah, we're gonna go ahead and that little gear by the laser fire, the script I attached, go to edit script, and we're going to edit this script. We're going to make a new script that okay. So what we're going to need here is an audio source. So audio source. Actually, we don't need the audio source. We'll just do get component audio source for the audio source. And we're going to do audio public audio clip. And this will be the laser sound. Laser sound. And we're going to need a public game object. And this will be laser beam prefab. Okay, and that's all we're going to need, actually. So we do for the laser, let's see here. We're going to make a method called fire laser. Void fire laser. So it's the opposite of laser fire. It's kind of confusing. Shoot laser. I'm going to say shoot laser to make it less complicated. And yes, I'll do shoot laser. And what am I doing? Okay. Shoot laser. And what is this going to consist of? Well, what we're going to do is a little trick I like to do with instantiated objects. So we're going to instantiate objects, but we're going to do it in a particular way. So I'm going to make a new game object called laser beam ins for instantiate. And it doesn't matter, you can name it anything, but I'd keep it the same naming convention so you don't get confused. And so what I do is say instantiate, and I do laser beam prefab, and I transform that position, so that'll be the position of the laser gun. And quaternion that identity, so the orientation of the laser gun. And what am I doing? And then what I do is with this laser beam inst, I can modify about the instantiated object after it's instantiated. So I can add certain things to it, like rigid body velocity. Now there isn't a rigid body attached to the laser beam prefab. We're going to have to remember to do that after I am done coding. But what we want is, okay, the laser is firing from a ship, right? So what we need is not just the laser to have a certain velocity. It's got to have a velocity plus the velocity of the ship. Otherwise, okay, your ship's going 1,000 miles an hour. You fire a laser, and the laser only goes 400 miles an hour. Well, your laser goes backwards by 600 miles an hour when you fire it, and that's not what you want. You want it to be in addition to your speed. So that's what we're going to do. So this is a little complicated. The transform of this object is on the laser gun, which is a child to the ship, which is what we want. So the transform dot parent get component dot rigid body dot velocity. What's going on? Velocity is plus, and we'll just say laser beam ins, sorry, dot get component rigid body dot velocity. Go to transform. I think this is right. Wait. Dot transform dot forward, and let's make another public variable. So we're gonna make a public laser speed, public float laser speed, and we'll just set that equal to 800. Okay, so it's got a velocity of 800. Transform that forward times laser speed, and that should be pretty good. So that's the laser speed forward plus the transform that velocity. Maybe we want to put these in parentheses because I just like to be safe with parentheses. And that's good. That part is good so far. So what we need to do is have a way of making it fire when it's updated. So we're going to go if input dot get key down key code dot mouse 0. Okay, and what we do is just say invoke repeating. This is kind of like a funny, I don't know, because you got to put in the string of the shoot. So you say invoke repeating shoot laser, and then the time that it starts, and I'm going to say 0.0f, and then the repeat rate, which is, I don't know, 0.3 seconds, 3f, 0.3f. Okay, so we have that, and then we need to cancel the invocation. So else if input dot get key up key code mouse 0, and we're gonna go cancel invoke. So that should work. I think this is good. So we just need, no, I forgot the audio clip. So we gotta play the audio clip. Get component audio source, play one shot. Okay, so this is get component audio source, play one shot, and then we do the audio clip laser sound, and we play it at full volume, which is 1, and that should do it. So I think we have it all set up in the code. It'll be a miracle if this works because I didn't test it out at each stage. But I think this is good. Let's take a good look at that code. I'm going to move over to this, and now we're going to do stuff for the objects. So then, like the laser beam prefab needs a rigid body. That's the first thing that I need to remember. Rigid body prefab. And no, it doesn't, the rigid body on the prefab, but it doesn't have gravity, so you take out the gravity. And let's see what else. I just need to attach. Oh, the lasers need to have an audio source. So you go to Add Component and type in audio source, and you're going to need to do that for each laser. Audio source, and uncheck Play on Awake on your lasers. And now we just need to attach the prefab onto the scripts and the audio clip, and do it for the other one as well. This one doesn't have the script attached to it, so remember to attach the script laser fire onto both of them. And I'm going to have the laser sound and the prefab, and this should be good to go. So we're going to test it out now. This is going to be the test. Hopefully it's the final test. I left the laser there, but yes, now it's working. It's working. We've got shooting lasers, and it's going in addition to the velocity of our ship, so it's pretty consistent. This is the behavior we're looking for. So I hope you reached this part of the tutorial. That concludes this section of the tutorial. We countered in this tutorial. We did forward and backward motion, and we did laser firing in a fixed single direction. So thank you very much for watching. I hope you have a good day. Have a good one. Bye.